Today, let's talk about asset recovery. We talk about this many times when you find it in a story in the paper. The Asset Recovery Agency has gone to court. Remember the case of two students recently? Two students who, they have a boyfriend gives you a gift, boyfriend decides to give you a gift, and then someone in government decides, no.
How can
you get a gift of 100 million shillings? How much did you want me to get? And so such cases are in court, and they have been taken to court by the Asset Recovery Agency. So we want to understand what this agency does. And joining us is the head of this agency, the director, Colonel Alice Mate. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio, Colonel.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you for having me. I am actually indeed very delighted to come and share with you and the rest of the Kenyans what is the Asset Recovery Agency, because we are not that well known. So we need people to understand what indeed is the Asset Recovery Agency, what do we do, what is the process of recovering these assets, why do we recover some assets and not others. So I'm happy to be here and to shed some light on that.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Colonel Alice Mate.
Correct.
This is what, 5 ranks to the top.
Where is it top?
Senior military general.
Actually, she's
That's a very good question.
She's actually one step away from being a one-star general.
Imagine.
Yes, one step.
Just there.
Absolutely.
Next up, brigadier, and then that's Quisha.
Correct.
It's a pleasure to have a senior serving military officer in the studio. So, are you still serving, or have you exited the military?
Oh, I have not exited the military, Eric. I'm still serving. So I'm still under the KDF law, as we call it, the tough KDF law that still applies to me. I am on secondment from the KDF. As you're aware, KDF officers can be seconded to serve just about anywhere on the globe. And it is part of this service that I've been seconded to the Asset Recovery Agency to serve in that capacity.
Okay. How long have you been there?
The Asset Recovery Agency,
Yes.
This is my 11th month. Yeah.
Just about to clock a year.
Just about to clock a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll discuss other aspects of your tenure. But
Okay.
first of all, just tell us what is the mandate of the ARA?
Now, very good question. And what brought me here, actually? The mandate of the ARA, first of all, ARA has been established under the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. This is an act that was passed by Parliament in the year 2009. Yes? And why was the act passed? First of all, we were trying to fight. There was the issue of money laundering that was rampant at that time. There was the issue of terrorism financing that was rampant at that time. There were issue of international obligations that we had to comply with. And so Parliament passed the law to combat money laundering, to combat terrorism financing, right? Under this law, they established 2 institutions for this sole purpose, the twin purpose. They established the Financial Reporting Center and the Asset Recovery Agency. The Asset Recovery Agency, therefore, is established under the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. And the mandate of this recovery agency is to recover, very simply, proceeds of crime.
How do you then decide what you're going to go after or not? Or is there a list that comes to you from like the EACC and says, well, you might want to check here? Or how do you decide?
Well, it's actually a very lengthy process. It's not like we wake up one day and we are told, whoa, Eric owns an apartment somewhere. Can you just go and take that one from him? It doesn't work like that. First, it is intelligence-based, number one. First of all, you hear the 2 institutions that have been established under the Act.
Yeah.
So it is intelligence-based, basically. There's a lot of intelligence that goes into it. The first thing that happens is we get the intelligence. Then what do we do after the intelligence?
Intelligence here, you mean what?
Well, it comes from information. Let's call it information.
Oh,
I may use the word intelligence because I'm in the
You
military.
know, military intelligence.
Making us feel a
But
bit nervous here.
All right, you get information.
Okay.
That's probably a better word. You get information that something is suspicious. Something is not adding up with a certain transaction, with a certain deal, something. And this can come from anywhere. It can come from the general public. It can come from other law enforcement agencies. It can come from just an individual reporting.
Financial institutions, banks, for example.
Banks,
Okay.
that is the whole idea behind the Financial Reporting
FRC.
Center, because when we go to the banks, we are supposed to make a report. If you know that if you do over the 1 million shilling, you're supposed to actually declare what that is all about.
Yeah.
And because of the know your client,
Yeah.
a rule in the bank, so they have to report. And this reporting is to the Financial Reporting Center. So the Financial Reporting Center has to receive all this information from all the banks, sieve it through, which one is really suspicious. Even them, they just kind of sieve the information before they relay it to whoever they feel is most responsible for now reacting or following up on the information that has been dispatched. On our part, when we receive that information, then we have to do our preliminary investigations. Yes, because we don't want to just rush to court. We don't know, is there any basis for this? So by the time we are taking the very first step, at least we have the prelims that, something is just does not add up here. And because at that point is still, say, we have not brought it to the limelight what is happening, and we need the courts. It's really the entire process is a court process. We have to go to the court, then tell the court, we have received this information that there may be something happening in, for instance, this and this account. We are requesting for your authority to investigate this account. And before we do so, please allow us to freeze this account so that the money does not dissipate. Because if we're investigating and by the time we are coming to the account, there's nothing, then it will be an exercise in futility. So we start there. That is the starting process. We tell the court, allow us to investigate. In the meantime, allow us to just keep the status quo until when we find out what exactly is happening. When the court allows that, it's really the discretion of the court. Then we start the investigation. Once we have now started the investigation, we call you, can tell us what is happening.
This term money laundering,
Yes.
I've always found it a bit puzzling because as you're speaking, I was thinking now, if Eric has conducted some business and he has been paid, and there are people he doesn't want them to know that he has this money, and he sends it to me to keep, are we laundering money?
Not really. Depends with the explanation that you're going to give us.
So what's the threshold for laundering?
Yes, that's a good question, the threshold. You see, you must, there are processes that entail the money laundering. First of all, I have received, and it's not normally small money.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
What is small?
What is small?
Small?
That's a hamburger.
just 2 million.
Yes.
Yamboga. All right. When you say, what, again, threshold,
Yes.
what amounts raise eyebrows?
Oh, well, we, as the Asset Recovery Agency,
Yes.
we don't want to go to come after you if you're dealing with 1,000 shillings, you're dealing with 2,000 shillings, you're dealing with even 100,000 shillings, because you see, first of all, it is rampant. And if we are going to clog ourselves with dealing with 200,000 shillings, then we'll never get any work done. So as an agency, it's just a policy, really, that we need to deal with these amounts of money that have an impact in the society, right? So that we don't really bog ourselves down with your 500,000.
Okay.
We are aware that, yes, some people are engaged in that, but the agency is all about, the impact in the society. We want to deal with the vice. We want deterrence. It is all about deterrence from people engaging in these criminal activities. So how do we do that? We are passing a message. The whole idea, in fact, is to take away the benefit of these crime activities that you may have engaged in. Can we take it away? Right? And money laundering, really, you must be able to, that's why I'm saying there are processes. You have the money, you want to place it somewhere, and then you conceal it. So that's it's not just one layer of you giving some money to Eric. People go into great lengths to hide this money. You layer it, and you realize they have come up with corporations, that their names are not even appearing on those corporations, but the real beneficiary of this money
same.
is actually where it started. And it can go in circles. But when you actually do the investigations and you follow the link, it leads you to who was the real owner.
So the person who's basically doing a good job at money laundering is doing a good job at hiding.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that means that for you to catch this person, you also need to be up there, to be up there in the game. So what is it that you need to do to be able to, nab this person? I mean, what kind of competencies are we talking about at the Asset Recovery Agency?
You really must be on top of your game, to be very honest, because the criminals are also, they're keeping ahead of us all the time. But at the agency, we have also a lot of competencies. We have forensic investigators. We have financial analysts. In fact, a bulk of what we do on a day-to-day basis is just to financial analysis of, you can imagine the bank statements that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's just too much. Some people are just seated trying to sift through which transaction was done on which day to which account. So those competencies are key for the agency. Financial investigators, financial analysts, and just investigators, your day-to-day askari, the investigator that we know, who is just doing the normal work of collecting witness statements, come and tell us what was your role in this money being dispatched from this account to the next account. We have those, and that forms a bulk of what to do. So by the time we are going to the court, actually, we have done a lot of this legwork. Yeah.
There's a term that one hears very often,
Yes.
and it's often with regards to politicians and maybe business people, ostensibly successful. It's called lifestyle audit.
Yes.
Now, it seems self-explanatory, but as a layperson, the impression I get is that somebody has been observing you, and they have an idea of what it is you earn, and your lifestyle and what they believe you earn, they don't seem to tally.
They don't match up.
Yes. You seem to be living way beyond what it is that you have declared you earn. Please, walk us through the process of how you identify such people.
And that is, I don't know if you've been following this conversation that we have been having with the lawyers, that we have been asking. We asked Parliament to assist us in having the lawyers to become reporting institutions under the Process of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, because we have realized in the discharge of this service, everybody who is engaging in money laundering, believe you me, has a lawyer behind who is assisting them.
Yeah.
And we have, figures that we can take you through that, in this particular case, it is such and such lawyer who assisted to hide, and eventually the money disappears, or we were able to get it, or something like that. The lawyers have been up in arms fighting it, of course. However, we were just telling them, and that is why Parliament agreed with us. If you're dealing with a client, you have been dealing with Colonel Alice Mate, for instance. I'm your client, and have been your client from X years. I've been coming to you, assist me buy this land in wherever, and the property was worth 1 million shillings, 2 million shillings. So the threshold of Colonel Alice Mate. Yeah, she buys properties worth 1 million shillings. That's what we have been doing with this client of ours, Colonel Alice. Out of the blues, I come to you. Oh, Wakili, now I'll have this money where I need you to buy me a property worth 50 million, whatever. Please identify for me. I have some 50 million shillings that we need to invest. Really, as a reasonable person in the society, what does that tell you? And I'm not telling you that, I got some... what do you call inheritance, or that I won a lottery somewhere,
Or all this land I've been buying, I sold them all.
or I've consolidated. Could
Yes,
also be
yes.
a consolidation of all these things. I'm just telling you, I have some 50 million shillings that I need you to buy for me, and we are saying, as a reasonable person, that should tell you
That there's something wrong.
something has happened. Unless I'm able to explain myself satisfactorily, as to where the 50 million shillings has come from, that then becomes a suspicious transaction.
Is there an explanation that will be given that is satisfactory?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And by the way, we've had cases of people who have huge monies, huge monies. And of course, we do what we have to do in the first instance, restrict it. And we carry out the investigations. And then if you do come and you actually are able to explain to us the source of this is how I came about it, it is a legit transaction, we let it go.
Okay.
We let it go.
All right. So you've talked about the fact that obviously there's an investigative arm at the agency.
Yes.
Right? So then when does the handover of information then change from agency to now those who have prosecutorial powers and things like this, for now those assets to become, I mean, because it's due then, after you've done the investigations and you found 1, 2, 3, and you're satisfied that this individual or this entity has not gotten these assets
Properly.
in a proper manner, then you've done your investigation. Do you hand it over to somebody else, or do you continue the process within the agency?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes, the agency has police powers. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned that. We have police powers under the Act, so that it gives us these powers to investigate. So that we're able to investigate, the Act has given us those police powers. Now, the agency also, we prosecute the matters ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, we have lawyers on board who are the people who go to court. And by the way, even the investigations, like we are together so that it's the same agency. It's not like we have it's a department. Actually, let me put it more clear. It's a department in the agency. We have the investigation department. We have the legal department, which has all these lawyers.
Yeah.
We have the financial analysis. We have the asset management, which is a very, very critical department in the agency. And so even the investigators, when they are going about the investigations, it's not like they are alone out there. We are sitting together as the lawyers and looking at each case on its own merit. What else do we need to get here? What next? So we are not getting an outside person. Okay. We are doing it internally. Yeah. Yes. And it's really a civil process, if I may say so. Because, and I think this needs to come out clearly, the way the law has been developed is that there are it's a two-pronged approach to the fight against crime generally. Yes, there's a prosecution. The prosecution, when we are prosecuting Eric for the offense of fraud or trafficking in human beings or trafficking in drugs or whatever.
Narcotics.
Yes. So the prosecution will deal with Eric. Asset recovery agency, on the other hand, will come and deal with the benefit that you have accrued as Eric as a result of
that thing that I was doing.
Of that crime activity or the criminal activity.
So you go after the benefit.
We go after the benefit. We don't deal with the person.
So ODPP will take me to court.
Absolutely.
Over the criminal aspect of this, which is,
Absolutely.
let's say, trafficking in narcotic substances. And then, I mean, I bought several cars, several yachts here and there. And this is where Kanwali Smart and the ARA come now for their yachts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's an entire difference.
And
For
so
us,
those two, are they going on concurrently, or is it one after the other?
it is, we have tried to draw a distinction because what we have realized is that the prosecution of the person, Eric, takes quite some time. And because the law has allowed us a civil process that now allows us to get the benefit from you. And believe you me, Eric, when we take away the benefit from you, you feel the pinch more than you'll probably even feel when you go to court and you're out on bail, the first day, and you'll be enjoying the benefits tomorrow.
Yeah.
So when we take away the benefit from you, it's actually passing the message harder, if you ask me. And eventually you'll get convicted, but at least you'll have taken away the benefit from you.
But you're punishing me even before I've been found guilty.
Absolutely not.
But is it really punishment? Is it really punishment? Or is it just balancing the scales?
The criminal case is still ongoing.
Yes.
But the Asset Recovery Agency has come and frozen my accounts.
Yes.
So I haven't been found guilty yet.
Yes.
And the assumption is that I'm innocent.
I'm innocent
otherwise.
until found
Thank you.
guilty.
Thank you.
But
Thank
now
you,
you've
Eric.
frozen my account. I am not able to eat life
Buy Moga.
and hang with the big boys.
All right. Eric, and that is why I'm saying you need to draw a distinction between Eric the person and the yacht that you bought from this activity. you're right. As an accused person, we have not infringed on it. You are having your fair trial in court. But you have a right to this illegally acquired property.
Okay.
Let me take a break. We'll come back to that. It's 7:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. With us in the studio this morning is Colonel Ali Smarte. She is the director of the Asset Recovery Agency. We want to understand what they do and how they go about it. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Digital technology is an integral part of any successful business, and staying up to date with the latest in digital technology is key to giving your business a competitive edge. On Saturday, 29th January, I, Olivia Otieno, is taking 00 Direct live and on location for the digital technology.
You are explaining the concurrent process that's taking place here. There's the criminal process with the ODPP and then the Asset Recovery Agency, which comes to apply for the freezing of the assets of the suspect who's going through the criminal case. Ndu had a burning question.
Right. So I'm looking at the judicial process, which obviously now a different area from you. However, a lot of times, by the time prosecution comes before and is now leveling charges, and many times we'll hear a judge will say, no. You people go back. You clearly, in terms of your threshold, in terms of evidence, have not met the threshold. So please go back, do your homework and bring this to us. Now, by the time you're going as the ARA to a judge and saying, freeze this account or freeze this asset, do not allow them to use it anymore in order to enjoy your gain. Have you gotten to the point that without shadow of doubt that the trail can be made between this asset, whether it is in funds or something else, it is a direct result of money that has been gotten from an untoward circumstance? Okay. Is there absolute proof and watertight that that is the case, or is it on a whim of guessing?
Okay. Thank you for that question. It's definitely not on a whim of guessing, because I've told you the processes that that goes into, by the time we are getting, even before we present ourselves before the magistrates' courts, for us to freeze these monies, there's a lot of work that has gone into it. Yes, so that we are not guessing. It's not about guesswork.
It's not like maybe this one fits here.
No. It's not guesswork. In fact, we have been having engagements with the judiciary, and you see, it's about coming together, getting to know what it is that we do, and so that the judiciary is also aware about what we need to take to them, what we need to take to them for them to understand us, and for us also to understand them. So, and what has clearly come out as ARA, we don't take cases that we are thinking, okay, maybe we're not so sure here. Yeah, it is the work that has been done before we get there is quite a lot. But anyway, getting to your question, there are two processes that have been provided for under the law that has established us, which is the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. There are two ways which we can recover the proceeds of crime. It has given us something they call the criminal forfeiture. Yes, which is you have been convicted, you have been taken, you've been charged, you've gone through the court process, you've been convicted, and out of that process there were some assets, and the court, by the way, on its own motion, can order for a forfeiture of whatever assets that are involved at that stage. Okay. If the court does not order for a forfeiture of those proceeds, then it is ARA that's supposed to come in and make an application for those assets to be forfeited to the state. Now, that application will be a civil application after the conviction. You know, in law, there is a criminal law, there is a civil law.
Yes.
The balance or the threshold for these processes is different in both cases. The criminal law, that's why you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. The civil law, which is now what happens in the commercial courts and everywhere else, it is on a balance of probabilities. When we balance it out, which way does it go? Did you actually acquire this correctly, or did you not acquire it properly? Now, the other route that has been availed to us under the law for us to recover these proceeds is something they call the civil forfeiture. Civil forfeiture is not a criminal process. It is a civil process. All right. So the civil process, then we have established ourselves. We are clear that all is not adding up here. There's an illegality involved. There's an offense actually. Or you either trafficked drugs, you trafficked human beings, and as a result, you have acquired this much, and we are going before the court. So then, the balance or the threshold that is required in the civil forfeiture, it is on a balance of probabilities, which is a civil. And then, you know what happens during the civil forfeiture is that the burden shifts. The burden then does not rest on ARA to prove without a reasonable doubt that indeed it is not a proceed of crime. The burden shifts to you,
to prove that
to come and tell us, come on, there's nothing wrong here. This is how I got it. And that is why we have a real perfect tool for fighting crime.
Because you just take me to court and you sit back.
I don't sit back. I do not sit back. By the time I'm taking you, I am sure that you are involved in
You're sure that there's something that
questions
has
to
gone
answer.
wrong.
In fact, it's always out of an investigation.
Right.
We have these facts, and we have also invited you, by the way, to come and tell us your side of the story. And more often than not, you have no explanation for it.
That's why you end up in court.
Yes.
So if somebody comes to you and is able to explain in a manner that is convincing, and with evidence, of course, that this is how they accumulate or whatever they have, then you have no need to take them to court.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are there instances where you can see, all right, so 80% of the wealth of this person could have been acquired properly. There's 20% that's questionable, and therefore you go to court seeking freezing of only the 20%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, the definition of proceeds of crime under the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act is so broad. It's so broad because they say that it is a benefit or an economic advantage that you have acquired either directly or indirectly. So it could be, it has come to me directly or through another cause. But then they also say it is on the basis of a proportion. So that if it is 80% of that asset that was acquired, like you bought some land properly, and then somewhere along the way you got some other illicit money to develop that property.
Okay.
So it will be on a proportion basis.
What if it's the other way around?
Yes.
So I got some money illicitly, I invested in something, and from that point on, the proceeds of that have just been clean. I mean, from the proceeds of this, I went and now bought another piece of land clean. I developed it clean. I sold the properties clean.
Eric.
But it's just that the seed is what
I'm glad he also has an answer for that one.
Wow.
No.
I reformed.
The foundation.
Along the way.
Yeah, I got some money. You remember that our job?
Yes,
With
yes, that business of ours.
our
Yes,
business
yes.
of ours. So we got paid. Okay,
Yeah.
and it was a one-off contract.
Yes,
and it was a good one.
It was a really good one.
So we get paid.
But we supplied. That's why we're able to be paid.
Yeah, but we
Yes.
know now there are issues that the DPP will bring. Now,
Yes.
we got paid. We got this money. I went from that initial 2 billion shillings. I went and invested in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Hey, Eric, that amount was not 2 billion. When did it amount to 2 billion?
You didn't know.
You mean, hey, yeah, okay, carry on.
See now, this is these are the witnesses who come.
Yes, he'll come and give us a statement which will support us.
So after the initial money that I got, okay, the 2B, let's say, I went and invested in something. But then I decided I'm not going to
Engage any further.
in
I have
corrupt
now
dealings.
transformed.
I've transformed. With this money now, the proceeds of this, I'm going now to operate clean business. Are you going after my clean business?
Okay. As long as the foundation is not good, then even the fruits are not good. Because this is it. It's an income from the proceed.
Okay.
So even the income then becomes a proceed.
Okay. Another part of the question,
Yes.
the Pandora Papers.
Yes.
So are you able to freeze assets that are not in the country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now,
So how do you get the
this-
information
this
about them?
is,
How do you investigate? How do you have jurisdiction, for example, with accounts that are held offshore?
Okay. Now, the law, like I started by saying, it was created as a result to a problem that was in the society, and not just within Kenya. In fact, there are conventions that have actually given this mandate of asset recovery, and that's how, in fact, even our own asset recovery came about. It was a way of dealing with financing of terrorism, we needed to combat that. It was a way of dealing with transnational organized crime. Yes. So when we are talking about the transnational organized crime, it's not, confined to one jurisdiction. Yeah, it is all over the place. And so these conventions have put in place what they call, we are supposed to, as a state party to these conventions, we're supposed to come up with competent authorities. Competent authorities in that, as a state, Kenya, we have established the Asset Recovery Agency as a competent authority to be able to deal with another competent authority in another jurisdiction in matters money laundering, in matters drug trafficking, in matters human trafficking, whatever it is that we are dealing with. So as a competent authority, then you're able to deal if the money is in the Bahamas, for instance. And there are two competent authorities that have been established, as I said earlier. The Financial Reporting Center, so that if it's money in a bank that has come from Belgium, the Financial Reporting Center has a counterpart in Belgium who we can speak to and we understand each other. So it's possible. And international cooperation is always being encouraged under all this convention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, second, the other bit of the question, forfeiture. So let's say you've gone through the process and the judicial officer agrees with you and forfeiture is ordered. So who actually takes over these assets?
Okay. Thank you. Asset management. I said earlier that we have a department that is called asset management, which is critical because at the point of we have come to seize the property, we are just starting. It's the starting phase. That property has not yet been determined to belong to the state at that point. And so therefore, we cannot then give it up or dispose it for purposes of the funds going back to the state at that point. So we have, and the agency has been given this mandate. And the same act that I've been referring to over and over again, that we are supposed to manage.
Let me say it. It is the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act.
Well, correct. We normally shorten it as POCAMLA because we know it's quite a mouthful. So we just call it POCAMLA. It makes our work a little bit easier. So then, we manage these properties during the court process. And the court process is lengthy. So it is the responsibility of the agency to manage the properties. If it's like an apartment that is bringing in rental income, that rental income, we have an account where the money goes, but it is not forfeited to the state at that point. We are just holding it until when the disposal of the proceedings is over. When eventually it is determined that indeed it is a proceed of crime, then it is forfeited to the state. And what the law has said is that all properties that are recovered on behalf of the state. Yes, so everything goes back to the state.
So what does that mean? So you've been given possession of this block of apartments.
Yes.
Now this one now belongs to the government.
Absolutely.
Does it say that, so does this asset management department at ARA now become the landlord, or are you required to sell it?
Well, the law also, the good thing with our law is that it is very clear in black and white. You don't even have to think about it. It says we are supposed to dispose it. If it's money that we have recovered, then we just transfer it to the consolidated fund. Yes. If it is a property, then we are supposed to dispose it off under the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act. Using the public procurement laws, we dispose it and the money goes back to the consolidated fund.
Now, you talked about the different avenues through which you will get information. Do political whistleblowers ever come into this? I mean, we're privy to this, proclamations all the time that there are some people in high positions of government who may have. How do you deal with that? Have you had cases where you've started to go after somebody who is high in political stead? Have you?
Absolutely. By the way, the way we deal with these issues, you'll get information from just about anywhere. It could be a political case, somebody is being persuaded politically, but they'll come and give us that information anyway. But you see, we don't take anything on the face value. Because if it's political persuaded kind of reporting, and then we just run to court with it, you'll end up not doing what you're really supposed to do. So with this information, we'll treat the information that we get about the political person the same way we treat all the information that we get. What we have to do is investigate, yes, and establish the authenticity of this report. Then we just take it through the process.
Is it your business also then to know what happens with either assets, proceeds from them that is now sent to the consolidated fund according to the Act? Is it your business to know what's done with that after? I'll tell you what I'm asking. We've heard from the Office of the ODPP some every now and then, even from the EACC, that we can see that it will be possible to make things better in the country if, right? Proceeds from some of these, cases of corruption or such would then be injected back into the economy, right? So it would look as though proceeds that you get from, offsetting some of these things sit in a fund somewhere and just hang there until,
Until when we feel, like if you've recovered 50 million, say for instance, it's good money, right? Yes. But what would be the impact in the society? So we want to give the consolidated fund
time to
and by the way, the ARA has been given the mandate to manage all these recovered assets, not just by the ARA, by everybody else who's recovering, including the EACC. Mm-hmm. It is the ARA that's supposed to manage all those assets in what is called the Criminal Assets Recovery Fund. Yes? Mm-hmm. So we are supposed to bring it into a fund. Tunaweka kila kitu yenye imekuwa recovered.
And thereafter?
And thereafter,
when do you decide it's enough, and then after that, what do you do with
it? You see, every financial year, the government is run on the basis of each financial year.
Yes.
Yes. So each financial year, how much have we recovered? Yes. How much are we? And some of this, and this is what I'm saying. It's really a court process, so that we may have preserved what is called preservation, and we are still getting the rental income, or whatever it is, from that property. But it's still going through the processes, so that the account may appear to have a lot of money that is just being generated from all these incomes, but bado kesi jaisha. Yeah. So until
so it is not yours.
Yes, it is still not ours.
Carol, there's something I want to ask. Yeah?
Yes.
I look at the MOUs that countries have, say, with some of these destinations that political leaders have chosen to take their country's money to. And I look at the processes of, even when it is determined that that money that is nestled in those countries is illegal, the repatriation of that money is a very lengthy process.
It is.
And in many instances, those countries will not give money back to the country. They say they will give it back in development projects and things like that. I put that aside. I then look at the governors that we have in this country. They are easy to target in that we know the monies they are given. We know what they were before they became governors. We know what they then are when they become governors. And many of them have pending cases with the Anti-Corruption Commission, and I'm sure your department also has issues with them. Now, when monies from such individuals and such institutions are then gathered, surely it's money that came from the county. Should it not go back to the county?
Absolutely. I agree with you. And this is, you see, it's an arrangement that we are going to get into as an agency, now that we are the managers of this fund. When we are returning it to the consolidated fund, there's nothing that stops us with agreeing with the Treasury. Okay, we are refunding some 50 million shillings. This 50 million shillings was stolen from the NYS, for instance. We feel it would be better utilized if it was channeled towards NYS activities. Nothing stops us from that. But then the money has to be returned to the consolidated fund, and then Treasury then allocates this money to these government, other agencies that requires the money. But then the other issue that we haven't even talked about are the motor vehicles. By the way, the agency recovers a lot of motor vehicles, because you'll realize a lot of the people who get these illicit funds are very, very quick to invest in.
You want to bring bang
in cars.
With the big boys.
So we have a lot of motor vehicles that we just then agree, and we look at the government and we call for expressions of interest. Who requires these motor vehicles more than anything? So that instead of disposing it off, because if you think of now going to dispose a motor vehicle, the value you're going to get out of it is really not much. And you feel that it will probably be better utilized if you put it to the use of a policeman, for instance. If we give it to this police station, it's likely the impact is going to be felt more. Yeah. So there are all these issues to be thought about and discussed at the point of repatriation. Again, the issue of the international other jurisdictions when they're repatriating the monies to the state, it's a lengthy process. They have it's what we call the big brother mentality. So we just have to deal with it the way it is coming. However, the Convention on Corruption, the United Nations Convention Against Corruption actually states when the money has been recovered, is supposed to be repatriated to the source, to the country where the money was stolen from, and there really ought not to be any conditions that are attached to it, but they're supposed to return. Okay. That is what the convention says. But there is a big brother mentality.
Tell us about the success stories that you have had so far. You talked about, it's financial years.
Yes,
so
yes.
In the 2019, 2020, 2021, and so far, how much has ARA been able to recover?
Thank you. Eric, can I speak to the 11 months that I've been there?
Yes.
Yes.
Because I've only been there for 11 months.
Yeah.
And I can tell you I have done well, if I may say so myself, for the 11 months that I have been there.
With all humility, of course.
Of course.
With all humility. With all humility, yes. So, so far, I think we have, at the preservation level, we have about 6 billion, which is now still going through the court processes.
Okay.
Forfeiture maybe about 100 million has been forfeited for the last 1 year. Or there,
100 million.
I don't have the figures.
Forfeited.
Forfeited completely,
Okay.
like we have concluded.
Compare this
the one
now
that
to-
the one that I can actually think of right now. At least I can think of 2 forfeitures that we have had concluded or more. Let me just put it conservatively at 100, 150. But about 6 billion is going through the process. So before the end of this,
6 billion is frozen.
yes.
Let's,
In terms of, and you don't just freeze money.
it's
We also freeze
money
properties.
plus property,
Yes.
motor vehicles, assets, whatever. Now, let's compare those 11 months to the previous 11 months.
Previous 11 months, that is before I came in.
Yes.
Yes.
So how much?
Well, that we'll have to look at the books, but there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot that has been going on. And by the way, I think I should tell you the story of the agency, the history of the agency, because sometimes we don't know that the agency has not been running for that long. Yes, the agency started its operations in 2015, and this is a time, in fact, when we are now trying to grow the jurisprudence in the court, so that everybody can understand what is asset recovery agency. And we're telling them this is a tool that has been given to us. It's the best tool to fight crime, and so the jurisprudence, even at the start, from 2015 to today, it's probably about 7 years thereabout. So it's been a learning process for everybody, everybody involved.
The trajectory is upwards.
Absolutely.
What I want to know is, do you have a way of measuring whether your activities act as an effective deterrent?
We sure hope that we are deterring criminals.
Impact.
Yes, because if I take away,
Assessment.
we sure hope, and that's why I'm here, so that I can talk to you, so that you can, the people who are thinking about engaging in money laundering can see really it's not going to pay. Because then when it comes to the years of ARA, we are going to come for the benefit. For us, we look for the benefit. We'll not go after you, but we'll come for the benefit. So ultimately, it will not pay.
Kano, you're the second director of
Yes.
the Asset Recovery Agency.
Correct.
Now, there's a case before court.
Correct.
Let's not discuss the merits of the case. But the process in law, is there a process of appointing a director of these agencies?
Absolutely. Yes, there is an amendment that was passed just December this year.
Last year.
Last year, sorry. Thank you. December last year. The law that was actually requiring the lawyers to report suspicious transactions also has put in place an advisory board for the Asset Recovery Agency. It is now the advisory board that is supposed to appoint. Actually, it is still the Attorney General who is going to appoint, but on the recommendation of...
So there's a recruitment process.
There is a recruitment process.
Okay.
Correct.
There's a question about, you are one of the very many military officers who are serving in government now. I'm sure you've been asked this question before, so just respond to it. How many other military officers do we have?
How many other?
Not how many, that's not the question. The issue of where we see very many serving military officers now coming to take up the civilian roles.
Well, you see, military officers are Kenyans, for beginners. So we are not coming from
Mars.
Yes, we are part of the society. We are here to serve this society. And as long as we are doing the work and discharging it diligently, there really ought to be no problem from where I'm seated, because we are Kenyans, just like any other Kenyans. And the law allows us to come and assist anyway.
How do you blow off that image or the tint that it's being used as an element of control?
It really isn't. It's about delivery from where I'm seated. It's about results. And this is what the president has been all about. If we have been listening to what he has told us over and over again, what do we want to achieve? How do we achieve this? What is the best route? Even you at an individual capacity, if you have a goal that you want to meet, then you decide, okay, I want to get to point Y. How do I get there?
The best route to take.
Our problem is
Yes.
getting rid or rationalizing our view of what the military is and the relationship of the military with civilians. But perhaps with the passage of time, we'll get used to the idea.
We'll get used to this.
And for all we know, some civilians may also be appointed to the military.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Colonel, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Eric, for having me.
It's good to have you on the show. It's good that you've been able to explain to us what the Assets Recovery Agency does, what it's doing, what its mandate is. And now, whenever we read or hear about the cases that you're taking before court, we'll understand this.
Asante sana. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Colonel Alice Mate is the director of the Asset Recovery Agency. We've been talking about the process, the mandate, and the job of the Asset Recovery Agency. Keep it right here.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.